Hi guys, follow up to the previous video I did about the reason why parrying with the flat of your strong is a bad thing to do, and I focused on why it's bad to parry with the flat, and now I'm going to show you why it's bad to parry with the strong, the flat of your strong specifically. Okay, and what we find if we look at medieval systems is that unlike later systems, particularly from the 18th, 19th century, where they tell you to parry as close to the hand as possible, we've got to remember in those systems they have a basket hilt or a sabre guard or a rapier hilt. They've got something protecting the hand. Okay, so if I just grab a sabre here, I'll put the longsword down, with an incoming cut here, if I parry close to my hand, that's fine with the sabre. Okay? In fact, if I parry with the hilt, it's not a disaster. The hilt will still stop the incoming blow. It's not great because I then lose the bind, so I can't control it so well. So you want to parry with the blade, but you want to parry with the base of the blade because it's mechanically very strong. It also, pretty much all sabre sources specifically say to parry with the front edge. So parrying with the front edge of the strong. Very, very strong. However, the reason why you don't generally do that with medieval sources, and there are medieval techniques that tell you to parry with the strong, but the reason that it's not generally done, and certainly in Fiore, the source that I teach from, it tells you to parry with the middle of the blade, and I'll tell you why. If I parry always with my strong, it's fantastic if I parry. However, what if I get it wrong? Okay? Bam! Sword in hand, which is not a good thing to happen, obviously. Okay? So there is a danger with medieval hilts because they're quite good at protecting in this direction because of the crossguard, but they're not very good at protecting anything which comes down below that crossguard. And often what happens actually is people get hit on the bottom hand, because you'll notice if that angle is here, you'll notice it protects, if it's going in a straight line, because the crossguard sticks out to a certain point and the geometry involved, it protects the hand the top hand fairly well, but it doesn't protect the bottom hand at all with the longsword. Okay, so parrying with your strong is inherently risky with a medieval sword, and for that reason lots of blade engagements and blade binds that you see at the moment of impact, they might slide the blade to the strong as they then thrust in with a winding, with a Winden type movement. But the initial blade engagement is usually up at the middle of the blade because, very simply, if the cut comes in and I engage here, it's much, much further away from my hands, and therefore my hands are much safer. And you know how much I talk about hand safety, not to stick the hands out and so on. Hands in unarmoured medieval fencing, and bear in mind this is unarmoured, essentially civilian, but unarmoured longsword fencing, or even if it's Messer fencing, your hands are very, very vulnerable. Okay? So that's why the blade engagement usually happens at the middle of the blade. And lastly, I'll just finish off by saying, it's even more risky if you're parrying with the flat. Because if I parry with the edge of my strong, comes in here, if it's a sharp edge, it might bite. Okay, it might bite into my edge, yes it causes a notch, but at least it will stop it sliding downwards or sliding around at all. Okay, equally, if I'm using a Federschwert like this, it has a flared schild or ricasso, which stops the blade coming down, even if I've parried with my with the strong of my edge. If I don't have the flared ricasso, I still have my crossguard, because the crossguard's in the same plane as the edge. So even if I parry very close to my hands and it slides down, my crossguard still saves my hands. Okay? Now if I'm using the flat of my strong, that doesn't happen, because if I hit there and it slides down, as I showed in the last video, the schild does nothing, the edge does nothing, the crossguard does nothing. I'm going to lose my thumbs or my fingers, or several fingers off both hands. So parrying with the flat of your strong is really, really stupid, and perhaps even more importantly, it's not historic. Cheers.